The Boundary Park Alert System is sponsored by Pendle New Tech, a family-run Lancashire business you can rely on for everything fire safety related, including supply and installation, maintenance, testing, certification, alarms, risk assessments, like I said, anything fire safety related. But what do I know? Visit pendlenutech.com and they'll sort you right out. Check the show notes for more information. This is a test of the Boundary Park Alert System. Hello and welcome to the Boundary Park Alert System podcast with me, Matt Dean. Hi, Andy Halliwell.
Good morning, Matthew. I was expecting to see you a little bit more tanned after your exotic week away.
Well, Andy, I've been skiing in the Alps. So
how very middle class of you?
I've officially had to drop my working class title now. I have to now say I have working class roots as opposed to being working class. So. Yeah, I've never been so surrounded by. I mean, you are every day in London, obviously, but it was really good though. I really enjoyed it, and I had SPF 50 on my face to stop me from getting some burnt up on my head. I had my big goggles on and all that. Yeah, so it was a bit of a, took it pretty good at it. To be honest, by the end of day 3, did a couple of slopes that I should never have done. Feared for my life on a few occasions. Typical stupidity that you never grow out of as a man. But it was really good fun. Really, and I'm back in one piece. So yeah,
very good.
I think I'd like to do it again. So it's there's something very addictive about going down a hill on skis quite fast. It's very exciting.
Well, I'm assuming you made some friends out there called Rupert and Sebastian and whatever. You can probably go with them next time, can't you?
Well, some of your pals, Andy. Do you know Andy Halliwell? Oh yeah, we all know Andy out here. Andy winters in Chamonix quite a lot. So yeah, it was good. I really enjoyed it, and but unfortunately, I did have to miss a Latics game, a Latics win. So everything. You have to make sacrifices, don't you, here and there for certain things. So so we'll get on to that. But we do have. You weren't there, Andy. I wasn't there, but we do have somebody who was.
Indeed.
So that's good.
It is a fun debutante on the podcast. When was your first game, fan guest?
So all the way back in 1982. So there was a thing called the Cannon Big Day Out, where the sponsors of the Football League came round to schools and handed out tickets. Joe Royal, I think he'd just become our manager at the time, and came round, did an assembly at school, and then talked about being a footballer, and then offered, and at the time I think politically incorrectly, father and son ticket options for the weekend's game, which myself and about 8 or 9 of my classmates took up, and it was a 2-2 draw against Newcastle United in October 1982. And I had to Google it to find a bit more detail about the game because I don't remember it because I was a bit young at the time. But yeah, 2-2 at half time, 0-2 down, came back to equalise. Both sides hit the woodwork in the first half, and then Newcastle had 2 men sent off in the second half. One for I think a bad tackle, and then the other one for arguing about the fact he shouldn't have been sent off. So an exciting but cold. I remember it being cold and windy and quite a miserable sort of experience being in the ground. So set me up for the future being an Oldham fan. But yeah, so
I think everybody's first game was cold and windy whenever it was.
But to be honest, I went to that, and then I kind of went on and off a couple of games a season for a few years, and then I started to go more regularly in the 86-87 season, and then eventually I decided to plump for a season ticket in the 89-90 season, which wasn't a bad year to start, and then I've had one ever since.
Very good. So that's 2 weeks on the bounce. We've had people that have predated our first games, Matt. 86, 87 was mine, my first season. Was Kevin Keegan playing in that Newcastle side?
I believe he was. I think.
Yeah, I reckon he was.
It would be a Google rather than a memory for that.
Yeah, hell of a first game to go to, of course, in the New Money Championship as it was back then. Can you tell us who was your first favourite player then, fan guest?
So I think my first favourite player came a bit later, and it was Andy Ritchie. I think when I first started to go regularly, and I think Andy Ritchie could do things with a football that I don't think I'd ever seen an Oldham player have the ability to do, and I think he was just a pleasure to watch. So yeah, Richie with a close second of Rick Oldham, because I loved Rick Oldham's ability to beat 3 defenders and then do it again just for the hell of it before he put the ball in the box. But yeah, probably Stitch really.
It's a regular and common choice for obvious reasons. What is your favourite ever away game, Fangast?
So this was tricky. The FA Cup, the big cup matches are always like big memories, like Forest and places like that. But I always kind of feel like that's a bit of the underdog. It's a plucky underdog result. I think some of my favourite ones were big league matches that felt crucial. And I think one that stands out is probably Sheffield Wednesday 2-2 in the promotion season. And I remember, walking into that ground and it's full. There's like 35,000 people in there. It's a top of the table clash. And I can't recall a league match ever feeling so big watching Oldham up until that point. Just a regular Commoner Garden League fixture that just felt massive. And obviously we took a 2-0 lead and then threw it away second half. But it was it felt electric on that day. So I think I would go with that over some of the big FA Cup matches.
I was there. Was it New Year's Day or shortly after New Year? Shortly, was it not? Was it November then? Maybe it was before Christmas.
It was before Christmas, yeah. That was the days where I think on New Year's Day, Joe Rawle used to have a party on New Year's Eve, and we always used to play horrendously on New Year's Day because I think that him and most of the team had too many drinks, I think. So if you look back over Royal's New Year's Day record, it's not very good, I don't think.
I was at Hillsborough for that game, that 2-2 game.
Yeah.
And it's there's extended highlights you can find on the internet, that game that Sheffield Wednesday recorded. I think they had a decent commentator, like a John Helm commentator, I can't remember. But when David, for those that are too young to remember it, when David Curry scores the second one, when he goes around the keeper, and then you can't tell because we're at the other end whether it's gone in or not. The cheer is so loud, you realise how many Latics fans are in that ground, and we pat that away end out. And John Sheridan, of course, scored 2 penalties for them in the second half.
He did, yeah.
Can you tell us a little known fact about yourself, Fangast?
One non-Latics related is that Matt actually played at my 50th birthday party last year, and it was such a good gig, but we got complaints because we went on beyond the curfew. So I got a local Facebook group were complaining about my 50th birthday party. But for a Latics related one, Ian Marshall, when we were in the Premier League, used to live on my road, and his walking his dog one evening, his dog broke the lead, ran in our house, and me and Ian Marshall spent about 10 minutes trying to get it out from behind sofas and dining room chairs, etc. But they were the days when Premier League footballers lived in a semi-detached road in High Crompton. I don't think they do that anymore. But, that was the days of that. So yeah, Ian Marshall and his dog.
It's good to know that Ian Marshall had a dog as unruly as Ian Marshall.
You know that thing when the people look like their dogs? Can you imagine, can't you? Yeah.
Was it a poodle with a mullet?
I think it was a something long-haired terrier of some description. Sort of thing. It looked like it had never seen a comb or a brush in its life. Very much like Mr. Marshall himself.
Oh, that's good fun. Good story. Right. Well, who are you?
So my name's Andrew Roach, but my friends know me as Roo, or if you're on the When the Blues, it's Scapegoat. And I don't use social media anymore.
I've come across Scapegoat. Oh, it's nice to put a face to a handle, yeah.
I did Twitter for a while, but I've come off of the social media, so I just go back to the forum these days to discuss Latics.
Well, being known as Roo is very handy because we have a Roo and an Andy now, as opposed to 2 Andrews or 2 Andys or whatever. So that's great. So welcome to the podcast. So Thank you. I did play with my it's your pal, isn't it, Matt Berry? As Spike Thailand for your birthday. What on? I went now that I'm middle class, Andy, and I was in Chamonix over the last week. I was in a sauna, obviously. And it was very, very hot, but it still wasn't as hot as that night for your birthday, which was incredibly hot in Leeds in a very small room on one of the hottest days of the year. Oh my God, it was incredibly hot, wasn't it?
It was. So therefore all the windows were open and all the windows were open, which made the noise when we passed the curfew even more obvious to all the local residents. But
it's rock and roll.
I was kind of quite pleased to get complaints at my 50th. Still
absolutely,
still cause a ruckus,
absolutely. Well, somewhere that there wasn't a problem with heat, I'm sure, yesterday was Boundary Park. You were there, Roo. Was it reassuringly damp and bone soakingly cold?
It was. So we actually we were the match ball sponsor yesterday, so we got to experience the corporate side of Oldham Athletic, which meant that we did get to go in at half time and go in and get warm afterwards. But even then, it was one of those games, where by the end of the second half, you can feel that your knees and bones have gone cold, and simply getting up and walking out of the stand afterwards proves tricky because everything is sort of frozen. So it was a pretty cold day, but the result, made the difference. And and obviously doing the corporate stuff at the side where we sponsored it with my wife does a podcast, so it was a rival podcast, but it's about the environment, not about Oldham. So Planet Possible, I'll get the plug in. So yeah, that was really good, and the whole experience of the club. So we did it with some wider family and my son's school friend and his dad, who's a neutral. He's a Sheffield Wednesday supporter. And just the club does it so well. It just feels like a really warm, inclusive, welcoming place to be. It really is a community family club at the moment. And everybody we went with commented like how enjoyable the whole experience was. So thanks to everybody at the club who made it a brilliant occasion, really, for us. So
that's great to hear. That I was about to ask you, for those, there'd be plenty of people listening who haven't experienced it. I've only experienced it once or twice. My experience have always been good. Food was excellent when I went. Hospitality was great. People greeted you well. Good service. It was a good experience. Same for you, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. We did it last year when we lost to Solihull, so the result wasn't as good last year. But it's really welcoming. Frank came in. He's got his OBE on. He's shaking hands. He's having photographs with people. Yeah, there's Paul Rickers was there as the pass player sort of thing, and so yeah, it's great. It really does feel like a very welcome, wonderful place to go. If you can, we only do it a couple of times, but when you do it, it's a really great experience.
Yeah, I noted Andy Ritchie. Andy Ritchie wasn't there yesterday, was he? Shame, your favourite player. No, that's because he was at the Manchester Derby, the great big shit house.
Whatever pays the bills, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair to Andy Ritchie, he was a Man United fan who went to play for Man United and then, came back to the Latics. So we don't have a divine right to claim it for ourselves, do we? No. I see it on Twitter, though, people posting stuff and that and like feeling hurt. It's like, I think he genuinely loves Latics.
He does. He's definitely got an affection for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you could, I can imagine it must be hard as a footballer because if you spend good chunks of your time at different clubs, you will feel an affinity to multiple clubs in the way that a supporter can't understand, because it's like the idea of people having two teams is like, isn't it? It's a horrible experience for a fan. You don't like people, don't trust people who have two teams. But footballers, I can understand why you would. If you'd spent 6-7 years somewhere and then another 6-7 years somewhere else, you're going to feel like both those clubs are important to you. So I get it. I'll forgive him.
Yeah. We'll forgive him. Well, I mean, the whole, the word hospitality speaks for itself. It's supposed to be hospitable. It's supposed to be welcoming, and it's just talking briefly about my band there. We played at the Etihad at some Christmas parties over the Christmas period, and it's like getting in and out of a maximum security prison, getting in and out of the Etihad. You have to have a pass for this, a pass for that, getting in. And they were lovely, don't get me wrong, the people, but it's a very, very different feeling than it is at Latics. Obviously, the stadium's huge. They've got multiple venues, bars, etc., etc. So it's a completely different thing. But what you go in there and you're impressed by the facilities, you're impressed by the stadium and all that kind of stuff. But then you think, I'm glad we have what we have. I'm glad we have this kind of connection where you can kind of wander in and around Boundary Park, and it's just like going into someone's home. It's much smaller, whereas that's like going into into a mansion or an entire apartment complex. And I think let's flip it around to one of the things that's happened this week, which is I was going to say unfortunate but tragic passing of Dale Harris. Yeah. Everybody knew Dale. Everybody'd met him. It's personal to everybody. Everybody at the club knows everybody, and whether that's through online, through social media or whatever, there's a real connection between all the fans, and everybody knows of everybody. And an employee or an former employee of the club, passing away like that, it's absolutely heartbreaking. And everybody, and it affects everybody in some way, because so many people will have met Dale, whether it's at like networking events around the town or on match days or whatever. And so obviously as an individual and as a podcast, we're really, really saddened to hear the news last week. And you sent me a message, Andy, didn't you, about it while I was away? And obviously our thoughts are with his family. He's got a wife and 3 young kids, I believe. So it's really, really upsetting. And there was obviously Rue, an acknowledgement of his life yesterday, wasn't there, at the game?
Yeah. A minute's celebration, I suppose, is the way to do it. And because of the sort of match ball stuff, we were down near the dugouts at the start of the game, and like I felt like the entire club staff was out in a line on the side of the pitch, to show their respect and their, the passing of Dale. And you could feel it. You could feel that people, it mattered. He mattered. People matter at that club, at our club, in a way that, like I said, I've been to City corporate a couple of times through work, and it's a very sort of anesthetic. It's very, you don't feel like you've got any connection. You're just somebody in a room, serve you some food, get out kind of thing. Whereas Oldham's got that connection, and you could see that yesterday with the way that everybody came out and wanted to pay their respects to Dale, and you could see it all around the ground as well. So very sad, but the club did it well, as you would expect these days.
Yeah. I mean, it is when you see Frank this week going to meet a future king and pick up his award and then engage in conversation, and also then do the news rounds on BBC Breakfast.
That was brilliant.
The Manchester and actually, whilst of course he is sharing the news of his award, he actually completely railroaded it entirely about Oldham. And you sort of, I'm not an Oldhamer, like you two gentlemen are. I'm not an Oldhamer. I consider myself a Manc. I was born in Wythenshawe. I grew up in Tameside. I just happen to support Latics because that's who I support. But so I don't really come from Oldham, but I have an enormous connection to the town through the football club. And it's made my hair stand up on my arms and neck, because you're like, look at him getting stuck in for Oldham. He's promoting Oldham. We should have a garden party in Oldham. I want to tell everyone about this town, this old cotton mill town that's done so much for the world with, the first IVF baby was born in the Royal Oldham Hospital. There's actually a movie, a film about that. I don't know if anyone's watched it. I can't actually remember the name off the top of my head now. It's a brilliant movie. I've watched it. It's great. I was actually genuinely hoping to see just a clip of Boundary Park in the movie, but there isn't one in there. But it tells the story, and then you just think to yourself, you sort of watch them and think that they're doing everything for the town. And I know that they're self-made and they don't have any financial worries as a family. And that's great. They've worked hard, but it's not me, and I. It's I'm doing it for Oldham. Of course. Nobody does anything completely altruistically. It's not entirely without personal sort of benefit in some description. So the Rothwells are getting enjoyment out of it, and it is promoting them and their businesses at the same time. But it seems, the way it's presented, quite genuine and selfless, and a genuine amount of the humanity that comes through with it. It feels it's not contrived, it's not made up, it's not it's genuinely honest the way it's delivered, and that's when every time you see it, you just think, my God, we are so lucky to have these people involved in our football club. I just thank my lucky stars every day, because you think, look at where we were and where we are now, and you think, wow, fantastic.
Having the conversation yesterday with a couple of people at the game, I said, like, I'd quite happily stay being a competitive League Two, maybe a League One club, with that ownership, rather than risking it and bringing in somebody completely doesn't have that connection and trying to get yourselves further up the league. And I think there's a real, and maybe that's just, I'm older now and I don't crave the idea of success more than I enjoy the security of having a football team, given what we've been through. But I think he's a unicorn, Frank. There aren't many people like Frank Rothwell that are involved in football, and I think we'd be really hard pushed to ever get anybody that feels the way about the town, the community, the people as he does. And I think if that means our ambition is limited a little bit on the football field to the bottom two divisions of English football, I'm okay with that.
Personally. Well, I mean, I understand the sentiment. There'll be some people listening to that groaning and wincing as you're saying it, because we've received that feedback when we said something similar in the past. But I mean, I think you can have both. But I just think it has to be controlled growth or controlled attempted growth instead of throwing everything at it in a short period of time. So, what they're doing is the foundation building of the academy, the whole Sports Town project, trying to get to a position where, bearing in mind, they're still throwing millions of pounds at it every year out their own. And that's the other thing. I don't know if you noticed, I think it started, certainly I saw the videos from the Chesterfield game and again yesterday. Frankie's letting people have a look inside a bunker bin. Come and have a look in a bunker bin. Come look where it looks like. This is what we got. We've got showers here, beds here. This is like and he said in one video I saw, this is what pays for Oldham Athletic. And so the continued success of that business is absolutely paramount to our football club because they're just redirecting its profits into propping our club up, which is not sustainable forever. So you can still have we could still dream that we could reach the championship, but it's just we don't have to do it in 2 seasons. We don't have to do it like Wrexham did. We could do it over a longer period of time, but with sustained momentum with all of the foundations they're put in. So, we're all grateful, aren't we? Should all be so grateful.
The Boundary Park Alert System is sponsored by Pendle New Tech, a family-run Lancashire business you can rely on for everything fire safety related, including supply and installation, maintenance, testing, certification, alarms, risk assessments, like I said, anything fire safety related. But what do I know? Visit pendle-nu-tech.com and they'll sort you right out. Check the show notes for more information. Well, you've got different mindsets, haven't you? You've got different personalities, and obviously, we're 21 minutes into the podcast now. We've not really spoke about the game against Cheltenham, so we'll move on to that. But we've got that. We've got a manager who understands that things don't happen overnight, and that you're slow and steady, and it frustrates some fans sometimes. When it comes to ownerships of the club and how that progresses, there'll be some fans who want more, and there'll be others who are happy with slow and steady. So it all depends on your own personal outlook on life and where you are and blah, blah, blah. So it's all different. But the main thing is to be going in the right direction. And for someone who managed to watch quite a bit of the game in the first half while we were on a coach from Chamonix to Geneva, which is incredible, the modern technology. But we were at the held ransom to buffering, so we didn't get to see it all. But it looked like a fairly sort of, didn't look like a classic in the first half from what I could see. Obviously, they went ahead. I think we had a shout for a penalty with Drummond got taken out by the keeper. And then they went up the other end and got one. So, but for someone who didn't really get to watch the game, at the end of the 90 minutes, it's like we won. We came from 1 goal behind and we won the game. I don't care about anything else at that point. It's like that's all that matters. And you look at the form, that we're in. Our form at the minute, our last 6 games undefeated. It's sort of top 6 form that we're in at the minute. Regardless of whether we won the game with aplomb and played brilliantly, we won the game and we came from behind. And Rue, we've not done that at Boundary Park all season, have we? So no. What was it like over the 90 minutes?
I think your point. It wasn't a classic. Yeah, it wasn't a game that you'll be talking about in 5-6 years, unless it was your first game. But in the first half, I mean, if you actually look at Cheltenham's performance, so we're on a good run of form. Cheltenham's form over the last 8-10 games is better than ours. So they're actually in a really good form themselves. And Cottrell has done what Cottrell does as an experienced manager. He's improved them massively from the shambles that we faced at their place when we put 3 past them, which was flattering to them, I think. But I said I was sat next to a Chef Wednesday supporter, and his thing at half time was there was only one team trying to play football in that game. There was only one team trying to win it. I don't think Cheltenham got into our box until they got the penalty. That's the first time they got the ball in the box. And we huffed and puffed. We weren't fantastic, but we were definitely the better team. and they scored, and you get that sort of sense, don't you, this season, which is because we're not prolific goal scorers, and are we now going to be able to do something from it? And the fact that, okay, it wasn't always the prettiest, it wasn't necessarily vintage, but we recovered, and we got back into the game, we got in front. And actually, I think up until that point, we were clearly the better team, despite it not being a brilliant performance. I think two things happened then. Mellon made some substitutions, which didn't necessarily help. He took Garner and Drummond off, who I think had been causing them an awful lot more problems up top than the replacement did. And then also, just it's a thing that football teams fall into, isn't it? That once you get in front, you kind of just drop that little bit deeper defensively, and you become a little bit more protect what we've got. And we've seen that sometimes with Oldham. You see it with other teams. And we kind of invited Cheltenham back onto us, I think, for the last 20, 25 minutes, which was not a comfortable watch. And to be honest, if it wasn't for Matt Hudson, Cheltenham probably should have and probably would have deserved to got an equaliser based on that last 20 minutes. They came back into the game. But Hudson, as my friend said yesterday, he's worth 10 points, that lad, a season. He digs you out saves that maybe you shouldn't make. And he did 3 brilliant saves, a one-on-one, and then 2 great saves in the sort of last 15 minutes. And we held on and we got the 3 points. And over the course of the season, there'll be some games when you win ugly. And that was kind of one of those, I think it wasn't great, but we won. We turned it around, which is rare. It's a home win, which is very rare. And it keeps our good form going. Like I said, the last 6 games now, we're averaging 2 points a game. That's playoff form, isn't it? And we're now, 16 clear of the bottom 2?
17.
17 clear of the bottom 2. That's a team that is not worried about relegation. And if anything, we're kind of probably going to be mid-table. If you could get a bit of luck and a bit of a 2 or 3 on the spin, you might start to try and challenge for 7th. But that's where everybody expected us to be at the start of the season, wasn't it? We were hoping that we would be mid-table, nice and safe, establishing ourselves, and then you try and go again, don't you, for the next season? And I think that's exactly where we are at the moment. And yesterday was one of those games.
We are exactly mid-table now. We're up to 12th, aren't we? So we're bang in the middle, which is great.
And there was some positives yesterday. I think, Kai Payne's probably his best performance in an Oldham shirt this season. He really, did a good job. Woods was, very solid, doesn't do anything dramatic, but keeps the ball, rotates it round. Garner was immense yesterday. I think he was just, he bullied their centre-backs. He won headers. He brought people into the game. Drummond, again, just looks a better all-round player the more he plays. I don't think we've quite yet worked out how to get the best out of Kane Drummond, though. He is fast. He's lightning fast. And we don't play enough balls into the channels or, for him to run onto as much as I think we could do. I think that's something that we could work on more, which is how to get more use of his pace than we do at the moment. Because when he does get it in those situations, he frightens them to death, but I don't think we do it enough.
I agree with most of that. Yeah, Garner was brilliant, led the line. Drummond playing alongside Garner is helpful to Drummond because Garner will talk him through the game. Where maybe playing alongside Michael Mellon, who was young, possibly he didn't have quite the same on the field coaching from his strike partner. Both ends of the pitch we were good. Matt Hudson was brilliant yesterday. Those people that get on his back, yes, Chris McGrath, I am targeting you. I just don't understand why people do, because he's a fantastic goalkeeper at this level. I know that there are at least 1, if not 2 clubs interested in buying him right now. I think with his 2.5 years left on his contract, we'd obviously be holding out for a decent amount of money. I hope he doesn't leave, but if he did because you cashed in, I would understand it. The issue I've kind of got with the way that we set up a little bit is we're a bit narrow, and with that sort of diamond, Kai Payne had a reasonable game yesterday. I'm still not convinced that he is that sort of midfield player, or whether he's a deep line one. Really, I'd like to see more width. I really want to see Hawkes and Stevens have a go in the side. I know they're coming back from injury, so I guess Mickey Mellon's knows 10 times more about football than I've ever known, and he obviously knows how fit they are. But I'd like to see us play with a bit of width in order to try and cause teams some damage and get some balls into the box for our strikers to have a crack at. I actually thought Mike Fondop affected the game really well as an impact sub yesterday.
He did.
Brilliant. And when he laid it across, when we were breaking 2-on-1, and he laid it across to Quigley, and Quigley at the sort of stand crossbar, basically. I thought that showed an enormous amount of maturity from Mike Fondop, because I'm telling you now, in previous seasons, he just wouldn't have passed it. He'd have tried to shoot.
Yeah.
And it was
a great, I mean, you watch the highlights, he shrugs that defender off, like just his power and his strength, just brushes him aside. And
then selfishly, unselfishly lays
day.
It off to his strike partner, who should really have scored because he had more time.
Maybe next time we'll encourage him to not pass it to Quigley and to put it in the bottom corner.
I think it was going to be difficult because the defender was in front of him. He had to lay it off.
It was the right decision to pass.
Right decision to make.
Yeah,
that's the type of thing that you want Kane Drummond to learn, is when to release the ball and when to run with it. And you can see how maybe playing alongside Garner helps them. So I thought it was a reasonable performance. My problem with us often in those games, because it could have gone either way, couldn't it? I think somebody sent me a message yesterday saying, "Oh, by the way, we lost the XG in yesterday's game, just in case you didn't know."
People on the forum will know I'm a big fan of stats. So.
Yeah. So if we did lose the XG yesterday, then that's probably the first time we've come out of a game that we shouldn't have won than we have. So great,
let's hope we lose the XG and win the game more often.
Quite. But I think where we struggle a little bit is with legs through the middle, youth to when you've got Pett and Woods in there. Woods has got loads of experience and sort of screens pretty well in front of the defensive line. I've got no problem with that per se, but his legs have definitely gone from what he probably was when he was in his 20s. He's not mobile enough.
It reminds me when we had Sheridan, when Sheridan came to us, and he thought, no legs, but the ability's there to influence games still, and that's what Woods is, isn't he? You watch him; he looks like he's in pain when he runs. It's that sort of uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah, and we have scored 3 goals from corners in our last 3 games now. So he's on most of the deliveries, which is great, because he did not get past the first man in the second half, because I shouted at the TV when he did. But his delivery hasn't always been great, whereas you could argue Sheridan's was always pretty good.
Yeah. Let's just be clear: there's a big golfing class between Ryan Woods and John Sheridan.
There is. But Ryan Woods was in the Brentford team that was trying to get promoted into the Premier League. So in his history, he hasn't played international level and in the Premier League like Sheridan did. But he's still got a lot of good experience behind him. I just think we need to do something with that midfield a little bit in order to control games more.
I think so. What you need is you've got Pett and Woods, who are kind of your, retain the ball, help defends, kind of keep possession type players. But you need the kind of creative, more driving player. And I do feel for Mellon this season that he's with that role is one where we've really struggled with injury. So Hammond started to look like he might be the solution. He got injured. Hawkes came in, started to look like he might be the solution. He got injured. Stevens came back. We've had a lot of disruption in that, and I think it takes time for players to learn how to play with each other. And I think that's been the most disrupt. We've had a lot of disruption in that part. Our defence has been pretty steady in terms of injuries and suspensions and things, and that looks a lot better. So I do feel a bit for Mellon that he doesn't often have the full range of players to pick from, and play them long enough to create. Maybe start to get that sort of.
I definitely that's definitely fair. But the interesting thing with those 3 players, and you can throw Will Sutton into the mix here as well, is those 3 players and Will Sutton. So Hawkes, Stevens, Sutton, whom are missing, Hammond. They're all our players. They're all contracted Oldham Athletic players. So at some stage in the season, and Mickey Mellon will know when best to do this. We've got to give our players chance to succeed in the team, because we've got to be thinking of next season. You've got to have one eye on next season. And Kai Payne will likely go back to Wigan at the end of the year. And we've obviously just signed the lad from Villa, Kane Taylor. So what I don't want to see is, if we're nowhere near relegation, which we're not, and it's unlikely that we're going to have enough to fire us into a promotion challenge. I'm not saying we're at that juncture right now, but at some point, I'd like to see our players get a good run in the side, because we need to work out, if what is Will Sutton, what is Hammond, what are they worth? They're young, or they've Will Sutton isn't actually that young anymore, but are they saleable assets? Do we want to time down on longer term contracts? Do we want to build a team around those types of players? And you're probably never going to learn that if you play in Wigan and Villa's players.
So, but at the same time, Andy, on in terms of where we are at this season, we are only 7 points off seventh place.
Yeah,
with Notts County to play coming up, with Cambridge to play coming up, we do have a chance of breaking into that top seven, and
there are teams that
it's way beyond where we expect to be to get back promotions. But as long as it's still achievable, then it's everybody's duty at the club, the manager and the board and everybody to keep getting as many points on the board as possible, and to try and get into that position. And I agree with you on that. I'd like to see our players getting preference, the ones that are permanent over loanees. But if we can bring loanees in and they improve the team, then so be it. Like it's up to the manager to figure that out, and hopefully we'll be in touch with that seventh spot right the way up till the end of the season. And then it's up to the manager to pick the best 11 he's got available on a match day, I guess. So
and
it's a good thing to be in, Roo. I think if we'd have snapped your hand off, wouldn't we? At this point in the season, 12th in the league, 7 points on playoffs, all to play for.
Yeah, and in terms of the loanees versus our own players, I get that to a point. But if you actually think those loanees might be players that you might look to procure in the summer, so if we can decide that they don't want Kai Payne and he's available, and if Villa don't think Kane Taylor's going to make it as I think bringing players on that you've got a potential of procuring, so you're almost like trying before you buy, and that might be, I think that's okay. I think bringing players in where they're never going to come and sign for your club, I think I'd have more of an agreement with that. But I don't know, I'm not sure if Kai Payne's going to stay at Wigan and break into their first team, so maybe he's someone that the club might see as a potential target for the summer. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, all that's fair. I guess in order to fill an hour's worth of podcast debate about subject matter, I'm trying to come up with a contrary position on it. I'm not complaining one bit. We won 2-1. He picked the right side. That's absolutely fine. He continue. Mickey Mellon's doing a fantastic job. I'm delighted with where he's got to this season. It's very, very good. So no complaints. But that's the slight nagging doubt, isn't it? Is what you do with the players that are under contract to you, whose contracts will also run down, and we might let them go, and then they do really well somewhere else, and we didn't really find out about them enough because we never played them.
That'd be frustrating.
It'd be frustrating, and how many times that happened before? I can think of loads. So I guess the other thing is, until the end of January, we've got another couple of weeks to try and move things around. I mean, we talked about last week about some names that Tommy McDermott at Shrewsbury. He was on the bench yesterday for Shrewsbury and came on. There's been a bit of chatter I've seen in social media. I don't know any of this. I'm not privy to any information, by the way, so it is just social media chatter that I'm picking up. But there's chat that I think Scunthorpe United were in their manager's press conference yesterday. He referenced thereafter a player who played or featured for his club yesterday, and there's some suggestion that might be a striker, and that could be Mike Fondop. I don't know whether there's any truth to that or what. I'll tell you what, and I've been critical of Mike in the past. If you gave me a choice of Mike Fondop or Joe Quigley, I'm choosing Mike Fondop. I think Fondop's impact as a substitute yesterday was much better than Joe Quigley's was. He was, and this is what I think Mike Fondop's great in a squad for, is being an impact. So he comes on 60 minutes when everyone else is tired, and he puts in that full blustering sort of physical version of himself on full energy and affects the game. He's great at clearing the box from free kicks from the opposition, defending them, and you need that maybe in the last half an hour of a game. And up front, he will compete. He's good in the air, and with like I said, a little bit of maturity shown yesterday as well. I thought he was really good as an impact sub. So if we're going to lose one. I mean, if you think about the strikers we've got Billy Waters back and we've got Joe Quigley. I'd put Mike Fondop in front of both of us to any day of the week.
It's interesting. So as an impact sub, I would always say Fondop. Yeah. But to start a game, I think I prefer Joe Quigley. I think Joe Quigley, and you've seen it in the Walsall game and a few other games recently, I think he can lead the line and hold the ball up and bring players in better. I think Mike's great coming off the bench and running and elbows out against a tiring defence. I'm not sure he's as effective as a starter. And I said that to a friend yesterday, and I got absolute grief for suggesting that Joe Quigley isn't like the worst signing we've ever made. But I generally think Joe's actually quite good as a target man, but I don't think he's an impact player.
He frustrates me, Joe Quigley, because obviously he's not prolific in front of goal, as proven yesterday. He will miss more than he'll score, and he's for the size of him. He doesn't hold the ball up as well as I want him to. Defenders nick it off him. His upper body strength isn't as strong as Mike Fondop's. He doesn't win nearly as many headers, and he's got a few inches on Mike Fondop. I think Mike Fondop's a better target man than Joe Quigley is. But
the thing with Quigley, Andy, is I think when he's got a bit of time and a bit of space, he's probably got a better touch and a better technique. But when he's under pressure, he doesn't have the strength to make the most of his touch. So if he could combine,
isn't he?
Yeah, if he could, he's better. He is a better footballer, I think, technically, but he doesn't have the power. And so you kind of whereas Fondop will, his brute strength gets him away with a lot of stuff. Quigley sort of he doesn't like to be bullied. And so that kind of that is the role of a centre forward in League Two, to be bullied by a centre half. So he needs a bit of time and a bit of space. But the flip side to that is Joe Garner, who, despite his lack of physical stature in comparison to both Fondop and Quigley, he knows how to use his body. He's got the touch. He's got all that.
We're the fire experts, fire safety experts at Pendle New Tech. We train fire marshals, fire safety marshals at Pendle New Tech. Pendle New Tech have fire experts across the UK, covering all your local and national needs. With over 100 years experience in the fire safety industry, you know that you can trust Pendle New Tech. Right, enough of that now.
There's a point I want to make on Garner, actually, and that is that he seems, I think he makes all the difference. Problem is, he is 38 and he does get his knocks. And I also think that he tends to have bigger impacts. You see the best of him when he's had a bit of time off. So, we've had a bit of a break, and he's come back yesterday, and by all accounts, he was one of the man of the match. And I think that as he starts in the starting lineup week after week, his sort of effectiveness tends to sort of just wane a little bit. I think because he's feeling the effects of it physically. So that's the thing. We can't sort of get, obviously a full 90 minutes.
He's not
out
90 minutes, 40.
No, he's not. No, and so he needs a little bit of a break then, I think, to sort of get himself back up. So, but I think it's one of those things where I think, mentioned it before, Andy, that experience, the nous. You're signing players like Garner, although they are, beyond their best and on, in the twilight of their career, they add so much more than just their ability to the squad, and so there are strikers that I'd be quite happy to see Joe Quigley leave as quick as he came in. Waters, because I know that there's better out there. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So I think that's what we want in it. We want to be trying to sign better, and I'm basing that on Quigley, on his performances. And hopefully, he'll do well for us. But up front,
but Joe Garner. Then when you've got someone like Kane Drummond, and you've got someone like we had Mellon Jr. while he was fit, that's Garner's there to try and make those better players for So he's kind of coaching them, as you said, coaching them through the game. And Drummond's performance is better because Garner's there. So I think he's a really important player to have in the club because of that. He hopefully gets the best out of our players that play alongside him. But yesterday I felt I think the game started to go away when Garner went off, But at the same time, I don't think Garner could have done that for 90 minutes, and therefore so you had to then you accept that your substitution up front, our substitutions generally reduce the quality of our players on the pitch rather than improve them, I think.
But what you need in any successful team, you say you need leaders all over the pitch, and ideally 11 captains and all that, but you don't in reality. But you need a good vocal goalkeeper. You need at least one really, really vocal centre half. You need somebody in the midfield who's very, very vocal and an organiser, and you need somebody up front who's got the nous and leads from the front. And that, when Garner's in the side, that's what you get. You've got that experience. You're leading from the front, and you get in. So you could argue that you've got the likes of Daniels at the back. You've got Woods in the middle. You've got Garner up top. You've got a lot of experience there, captain-like personalities. And I think when Garner comes off, sometimes then you bring some of the other lads on who aren't quite as sort of vocal and as experienced and drawing the fouls and doing the things. It makes the whole team look a little bit, we tend to drop back, don't we, for starters, and we tend to be under a little bit more pressure. So I think that's where we're at now. I think in terms of what happens with that front line, whether it's between now and the end of obviously between now and the end of the season, it's the difference between finishing 10th, 12th, or potentially 7th, if we could bring in some firepower just to convert these chances into goals. Because we've got the defence for it, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah, I mean, I know we're looking at forward players from leagues above, but we'd have to get some players out in order to get some in. I noticed that there's a midfielder born in Oldham, actually, but plays for Halifax, called Josh Hamami, who put a transfer request in the week and didn't feature in their squad. He's a midfielder. He's done quite well for them at that level. I don't know whether we'd be looking at him or not. But it would require, I mean, if they want Billy Waters back, maybe we can do a deal there. So I think there's a bit of wheeling and dealing to be done. So there's a handful of names, that are being thrown around that could potentially be the types of players we look at. So by the time we get to the end of January, if with the forward players we've got now, like you say, Garner, Fondop, Quigley, Waters, Drummond, and Harrott. Yeah. I can't see us threatening the top 7 with that. I just think it's going to be really, really difficult. When you look at what the top 7 have got in some respects, I think it will be too far an ask, really. And that's fine. So if you get to the end of January and you haven't been able to wheel and deal, but you're miles away from the bottom, then I think we probably want our next season. Let's see what we've got for next season and make sure we play the likes of Sutton and Hammond and Hawkes and Stevens and see how they fare. Give them a good few games to get used to it.
I think that's the challenge we've got, isn't it? That we've got, our budget is whatever our budget is, the rumours of how big it is or where it sits. But in football, forwards cost you the most money. That's just the way it works, isn't it? And on an unlimited budget, I think Mellon and the club have built from the back and say, well, we want to stay up. We want to be sort of defensively sound. And then what we've got left is what we spent on our forward line. And it isn't as good as we would like it to be. But if that's all we can afford this season, I think we have to accept that, don't we? And you hope that the Mickey Mellon Jr. would have been, a player who performs above what our wages probably would have allowed, but unfortunately his injury means that that's not going to be the case. So I think it's going to be a challenge for us, the forward line.
Yeah, I mean the league table says it all for Latics. We've won 8 games out of the 25. We've drawn 11. Chesterfield have drawn 11-2 up in 8th, but we've lost 6. Which is less than Swindon, less than Walsall, less than Salford. Same as MK Dons, less than Notts County. So, we don't get beat very often, but we've only scored 26 goals. Yeah. And, the highest scorers in the league are MK Dons, and they've scored 48. So they've scored 22 goals more than we have. But we've only conceded 20, which is as good as anybody. There's only Cambridge who've conceded as few as we have. So it's really is just one of those. It's a fine margin thing. If we could just get a few more goals this season, we clearly would convert some of those draws into wins, and we'd be in with a shout. So we either need some of the strikers that we've got to go on a purple patch and start banging them in, or we're going to need to improve it. Whether in all likelihood, that's going to be next season, isn't it? Like the budget, so hopefully we can keep the players that are keeping us defensively sound, and you've got to say, like you've already mentioned, Roo, Matt Hudson is pivotal to that. If we do sell him, we have to get another really good goalie, because that's part of the success we've had this season. With the
what do you think he's worth? What do you think Hudson? I've no sense.
Well, it depends with the length you got. With a 2.5-year contract, I wouldn't be letting anybody think they could get him for a penny less than £500,000 as a starting point, and I possibly want to try. And if you had two clubs interested, I mean, the clubs that have been names that have been thrown around have been interested. Wigan have been interested for a long time, and I believe Huddersfield maybe had a look as well. Obviously, around the corner, both of them. So, if you get two of them having a go, get a bidding war going, and try and get it as high as you can. But I wouldn't be dealing for less than £500,000 with 2.5 years left on his contract. And obviously, it depends what he wants to do as well. You've got to, if he wants to leave, then I guess it becomes a slightly different comment. Is he about 26, 27, something like that?
Yeah, he's a really good age for a goalkeeper. Like he was quite young when he came to us, wasn't he? And I think he's been around for a few seasons with us now. So and it's obviously goalkeepers are a really important position. There's not that many of them out there really that are playing week in, week out in the football league. So I'd say you should be able to hold out for a good price. And I guess it also depends on what level people think he's capable of playing at. If he goes from League 2 into League 1, is he then potentially going to be sold onto a Championship club? And what's his
but this is how you sustain your club over a long period of time. Is you have to accept that if you sold him for £500,000 with a 20% sell-on fee, and then I don't know, Ipswich bought him for £2.5 million a year later, then that's great. You're coining it in, and it's keeping your club going. So that's the sort of stuff you need to think about. Just out of interest, Roo, Regan Olga was out of the squad yesterday, presumably injured. Did you hear any? There's a rumour that it's a bad one. I don't know whether you heard anything in the lounge yesterday.
Nothing other than that. Yesterday, a few things on the forum that is it, because he's not been seen in the training photographs, and he's not been seen in the gym. I think if Regan, he's not pivotal to us. I mean, I thought he was a good National League player, Regan Ogle. I think he's a good backup at our level. But all I've heard is probably the same as you, Andy, that there's a suspicion that he's out for the season, and he's not been seen around in training or in the gym this week.
Which actually, the thing, I mean, I love Regan Ogle. I like his attitude. I like the way he plays. I think there's something. I cannot stand the Australian cricket team. Like, I really don't like it.
I don't want to go back over the
But I respect the way that Australians play sport, and you can see that in the way that he does. So yeah, I thought that Regan Ogle had really started to come into it again, and it would be disappointing to lose him for the rest of the season. His contract's up at the end of the year. It'd be a difficult decision come the end of the season what to do with him and some others. So yeah, hopefully he isn't. Hopefully we'll see him again.
Well, we don't need any more long-term injuries, do we? We've had a good few number of them this season, unfortunately.
We have.
So, but yeah, it happens, doesn't it? It happens at all levels of the game, I'm afraid. Right. Well, listen. This week's episode's flown by, Andy. I don't know if it's felt like that for you. We haven't had a chance to listen to Mickey Mellon. We've had so much to talk about, it seems. But one thing that we cannot not do is Latics Mine. We have to play it. So
we do. This week I have mixed up all of the remaining Christmas questions into the normal run of questions, so they're going to come out in any random order.
Right. Okay. Right. I know, Roo. I know, like you, like every other guest, is really looking forward to playing Latics Mind. It's. I
mean, 2 goals. One is ideally don't get 0, but there's a lot of people got 0, so that's okay. And I like your. It's for people to play along at home is why we do
exactly.
This,
yeah.
Well, the other one is, what did Matthew Berry buzzer get when he was on? Seeing as I sit next to him at the game, I would kind of like to not be beaten by buzzer if I could help it, but
no idea.
Okay.
Has he been on?
He's been
on.
He's been on. Yeah.
When was that? When was it?
Last season.
I don't know. I spend so much time with him. I guess I can't differentiate between what's on the podcast and what's not. But of course he's been on. Yeah, of course he's been on. Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Well, I'm sure he'll be able to tell you, Roo, and
Yeah, I'm sure he will.
So I'm sure, and I'm sure that he'll point it out if he gets more than you. So
Yeah.
you won't have to wait too long to find out. Right. Let's play Latics Mind. Latics Mind is sponsored by Oldham Athletics Supporters Foundation, investing in the fans, the club, and the community. Join today at oasf.co.uk for just £12 a year. OASF, because we're stronger together.
Latics Mind.
Who am I? A striker with blistering pace who had 2 spells with Latics. In between was a big money move to West Bromwich Albion.
Pass.
When was Latics' last away win on New Year's Day?
and 2020.
Wrong. It was 2008 against Leeds United.
Wow.
Who was Latics manager on Boxing Day 2016?
Oh. Paul Dickoff?
It was Steve Robinson.
Oh.
Since Joe Royle left in 1994, which manager has taken the furthest in the FA Cup?
Paul Dickoff.
Correct. Before Mickey Mellon in 2023, who was the last Latics manager to win on Boxing Day?
Harry Kewell.
Wrong, it was Dino Marmaria. Okay. Who beat Latics in the 4th round of the FA Cup in 1995?
Barnsley.
Leeds United. Who was Latics manager who was sacked on Boxing Day 2018?
Harry Kewell.
Frank Bunn. Who scored Latics' first goal in the Football League Trophy this season?
Fondop.
It was Luke Hannant. Who was Latics' top scorer in 1996-97 and 1997-98?
Barlow? Stuart Barlow?
Correct.
Jigsaw, yeah.
2 correct.
2. I'll take 2.
Very good.
1 pass. If you get this, I'll be impressed.
So a rapid striker that we went
who am I?
to West Brom.
A striker with blistering pace who had 2 spells with Latics. In between was a big money move to West Bromwich Albion.
The thing is, Andy, I've seen because we've had some technical trouble that you probably won't be aware of because it'll be edited out. But I was preparing to do Latics Mind, so I brought the questions up. So I could have said, "Oh, that's David Shaw," and you'd have gone, "Oh, I'm impressed that you got that," but I've seen the answers, so that question. So I won't pretend. I won't pretend.
Very good.
The manager questions are really hard because we've had when you've had 3 managers a season, it's like trying to keep that order in your head or structure.
Exactly.
Really hard.
No, it's virtually impossible, isn't it?
Yeah.
But 2016, that was the first, because you talk yourself in and out of an answer as well. And sometimes when you do the answer, you've got to go with your instinct. So 2016, I was like, could that be Stephen Robinson? So that answer did pop. That answer did pop into my head. But then you're like, and ahhing, aren't you? So, but those questions are really tough. So how many did you get questions there? Did you get 2?
2. I'll take 2.
Right. Yeah, that's not bad. That. Yeah. I wonder how many Buzzer got. Buzzer, how many did you get?
We'll wait and find out.
Yeah. He'll tell you. Good stuff. Right, so we're nearly at an hour now, Andy. Your internet seems to have calmed down and played ball. Have you got anything else? Have you brought all the points that you wanted to bring, Andy? Is there anything else on your list?
No, I think we've probably done most of the stuff for this week. We talked about transfers. We talked about Regan Ogle's injury. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've probably done most of it. I mean, I guess the only other subject matter would be we heard this week, didn't we? In I think it was Mickey Mellon's presser before the game, where he confirmed what a lot of us had long since assumed, which is that Burnley haven't recalled Michael Mellon, and so we're paying his wages. And that is
he's just had an off, hasn't he, as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's not the lad's fault. You know, I'm gutted for him because he looked like he was really coming into a bit of form just before he got injured, which is a real shame. He looks like he'll be a real player. Definitely play above League Two level, you'd assume, if he can keep fit, because he's now had a series of seasons where he's got injured, hasn't he? He's got to keep fit. He's still a growing lad, I guess. But I guess the underlying subject matter is, we've done a deal where we loan a player from a club where we don't have any right to cancel the contracts halfway through. I guess that might just have been the situation Burnley were sticking to. I don't think Burnley recalled anyone. They've not recalled the lad at Shrewsbury. It looks like Burnley want the money, even though they're in the Premier League. They're still scraping around for money. I guess your only argument is, could we or should we have tried to ensure that there was a break clause in there for us if it hadn't have been a success? I guess it's a bit of a moot point.
It felt like quite a protracted deal, and you can imagine that. Well, if we can't afford that wage. Well, if you're going to take a lower wage, then you take more risk, and maybe that was the sort of the balance we had to take. I mean, so as part of the sponsorship today, after the game, we got to go into the manager's office and very briefly, and Michael Mellon Jr. was sat there in his full Latics training kit in the manager's office with a few other people. So he's still around Boundary Park, at least on match days, and he was.
That's great.
So he was there yesterday.
Well, that was something I noticed when we beat Walsall away the other week. I don't know if you noticed there was some footage in the tunnel after the game. Mike Fondop was there in full kit. He was suspended, so he didn't have to be there either, but he was there. And I like to see those sorts of things because they're involved. There's obviously a connection in there and still involved, even though they're not.
And that's the thing that we've mentioned it a couple of times, but about the spirit of the players and the camp, and that determination to grind out points and results, and that's why I'm really delighted that the 18th of January. We've had many seasons where we got to this point, and we know that the season is dead and buried in terms of we might need to keep looking over our shoulder for a while to avoid the drop, but we're looking at probably a 17th. Anything above that, the playoffs is dead and buried. We're back in the Football League, first season back in the Football League. 18th of January, we're 12th in the division, we're 7 points off the playoffs. We're still in with a chance, and that's great. And we're looking ahead to the game against Barnet on Saturday, which you'll be going to, Andy, I should imagine, North London.
Yeah, I'll be there. Yeah, I'll be there.
12:30 kickoff, just in case anyone was expecting to go down there for 3. Make sure you have to set off extra early. But yeah, it's all good. What you got? What to say? Make a point there, Rick?
Yeah, the one thing though is that it's a talking point. Is Mellon's contract. We are now halfway through January, and there's not been an announcement. There was a few rumours, wasn't there, before Christmas that they were, when we were in a bit of a bad run, they were waiting for a win because they wanted to announce it with some good news. But we've now had, we've won 3, drawn 3 in our last 6. We're in good form. We're in the transfer window. It's just notably not a lot being said about the manager's contract and whether he's extending or what that looks like. I wonder what your thoughts were.
It's a fair point. I thought they would have. I thought they were waiting for a more opportune time to do it. I thought that it had been agreed in principle already. It still may well have been done, and you can imagine the way that Mickey Mellon talks about the Rothwell family, and the way that like we've discussed already, the Rothwell family act. You can see both parties just agreeing on a word, can't you? You can see them saying, "Look, yeah, 2-year deal. We'll do your 2-year deal. You get my word. We'll sort the paperwork out later on, and there's no rush, or whatever." You can see them having principally agreed to a deal that they're just not formally done yet and announced. I don't expect him to go anywhere. He said in an interview, I think he did an interview this week, Mellon, with the Daily Mail. And it was quite as long format written interviews behind a paywall, but you can get hold of a copy if you seek hard enough. And in that article, he talks about wanting to stay. And that's probably the first time I've actually seen him say it anywhere. So if he wants to stay, and if the club want him to stay, why wouldn't you, given the last 12 months? I don't see any chance that he leaves at the end of the season, personally. And I'm very happy for him to be here next season also. So I don't expect there to be any issue. And they've probably agreed it in principle. So we'll probably find out at some stage. I would have thought. But yeah, just to come back to the other point, it's about some of the loan deals that we've potentially had, the likes of your Josh Stones, Sam Clucas, Michael Mellon loan deals. Sometimes it feels like, and I'm reaching here for a point of discussion more than anything else, but it feels like we come out on the wrong end of some of those deals at times. But if you're in a situation like Rue, you've very eloquently described, we were after Michael Mellon. Sometimes you might have to forego something in order to get something, and maybe the break clause in our favour was the thing to forego in order to get the deal done. And that's just life.
We don't hold all the cards in these situations, do we?
Correct.
It's the parent club who
or the player,
the shot, and the player. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, so it must be difficult to get the right deal, but it's just a question of luck, and that was just really unlucky. If he comes through the season unscathed, it's all good. But unfortunately, even if you get 3/4 of the season out of him, it's happened halfway through the season, and that's a real shame. So, and it will have a knock-on effects, like in terms of the budget for who we can bring in. But like I've already said, look, we're in a really, really good position at this point in the season. We've come through Christmas and New Year undefeated, which we never do. A lot of fans were worried about the second half of the season syndrome that has dogged us for the last couple of seasons. Well, we've not started that way, have we? We've played 2 games. Well, it could have been 4 games at this stage. We've had 2 postponed, but we've had the draw against Chesterfield and the win against Cheltenham now. And Barnet, we go to Barnet. We usually do all right there. Am I right in thinking that, off the top of my head, the last 3 results at Barnet, didn't we draw 1-0, win 1-4-1, and win 1-3-0 or something like that? I think we've got pretty good results.
I think the 0-0 and the 4-1 were both live TNT or whatever it was matches, weren't they? And exactly. I think it was Norwood when we won 4-1, just battered them really. And so it's good. I think the other thing is, we've lost 6 games, but I can only count Notts County as a match where I felt we were never in the game till the end of the game. We are competitive.
Swindon at home as well probably gave us a good idea, didn't they?
Well, it was only 2-1, wasn't it?
We were pushing. I think the end. There's very few games you're sitting there with 10 minutes to go, thinking, "Well, we're done, we're out. We might as well leave early." Kind of, that's what you do, kind of thing. We've been competitive almost every week, I think.
Yeah. So I think we're right in it. We're playing Barnet, then we've got Barrow away. So they're below us. Hopefully we'll be able to. I'm not expecting that to be a classic, but if we can come away with all 3 points, that'd be good. We've got Cambridge coming up, who are above us in the table. We can close a bit of ground on them. I haven't actually seen when the rearranged games are. The Notts County game and
Notts
the Bromley game.
Tuesday in March, I think, and the Bromley's also. I think Bromley's early Tuesday night, early March, and Notts County's Tuesday evening, late March.
Notts County, it's a shit. Notts County not on the best run of form, so that might have been a good time to have played them. And Bromley have been flying, so I'm all right with the rearranged Bromley game. So, but look, we'll just keep coming back on the podcast, talking about each game as it comes, and hope that we turn over enough points. Maybe we've got a striker. There's a bit of business that we can discuss as well in terms of ins and outs, and maybe we get somebody else in to help fire us towards that 7th place. That's the aim, I'm sure. And as long as that's on the cards potentially, then I think it makes for an exciting end to the season. So absolutely delighted with the way things are going. Andy, enjoy Barnet on Saturday.
Well,
I'm sure you will. Taking the boys.
I'm taking the boys. Yeah, we'll be in a Weatherspoons somewhere in North London by about 9:30. Yeah.
Right, good stuff. There you go. Keep your eye out for Andy, folks. If you're travelling down, I won't be travelling down because, despite the veneer of middle classness, my bank balance is not reflective of such a comfortable lifestyle after a trip to the Alps. So I'll be avoiding spending any money going down to Barnet this weekend. But I think I'll probably make the trip up to Barrow on Tuesday.
It's quite a lot of travelling, that, isn't it? You've in the space of 3 days.
Cold, and not that miserable night in January. Sorry, I think I just lost signal for a second there. Andy, what are you saying?
Yeah, I was just. It's quite a lot of travelling for the team to do that. London on Saturday, Barrow on Tuesday. Yeah. Hopefully,
it is. Yeah.
You'd take 2 points from that now, wouldn't you? I think if it was offered to you, you'd take up your coming out undefeated from those two, but hope for more.
Yeah, I think you want to keep that undefeated thing ticking over, but we need to convert those draws into wins, don't we? But I mean, I think ultimately win one, lose one is better than 2 points, isn't it?
It is.
As well. So
defeat,
it's better points, isn't it? The defeat. Yeah, psychologically, whatever, but you come out of 2 games with 3 points rather than 2 points, and that's what the teams above us are doing. They're losing more, but they're winning more. So it's that's the way it goes. Well, anyway, Ruth, thanks for coming on the podcast. Hope you've enjoyed your debut. You're more than welcome to come back at some point in the future.
I enjoyed it, and like I said, it's a fantastic service that I know lots of fans welcome and listen to. So thanks very much for doing this, guys, and thanks for having me on.
It's our pleasure on both counts. Right, Andy, I don't know if Sexy Dave will be around on Thursday in this country or available. Well, hopefully he will be. We'll do a football phone-in, which will make a nice change.
The Latics Football Phone-in, proudly sponsored by Legacy Pets. Being a Latics fan is for life, and so are our pets. No one wants to think about what happens when we lose them, but when we do, we need to know that both them and us are in good hands. Legacy Pets have worked with animals for over 20 years and understand what it means to have lost a beloved family pet. They're also Latics fans. So, if you do need their pet cremation services someday, they are dedicated to providing compassionate support just like we do on the phone-in. Visit legacypets.com and tell them that you're part of the Latics family too. Easy boy.
That'd be lovely, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be. Yeah, it'd be nice to see Dave. I haven't seen him for ages.
You can tell him all about your middle class ski trip. It's something that I'm sure he'll have done many times before.
I'm sure Dave can't ski. Absolutely no chance.
He's like Judith Chalmers at the best of times. He's always abroad, isn't he?
But David would just be sat there, he'd be there for the après. I'm sure, but not for the not with his knees anyway. Can't imagine that. So, but brilliant. Yeah. See us on Thursday. Thanks for listening. And thanks again to you too. And see you soon. Come on, Oldham.
Hey Dave, did you know that listeners can now buy us a coffee or any other kind of hot beverage? Ooh. What's your favourite hot beverage, Dave?
A macchiato.
And how do you like your macchiato?
Black with lots of milk. Oh.
No cream?
No.
Well, if you want to buy Dave
macchiato,
then go to buymeacoffee.com/We Are Oldham. I'll just have a Nescafe.
Oh. Thank you, listeners.